kids were brawling in a Chipotle in Navy Yard. Obviously, when it comes to the curfew, teen takeovers, the violence in the city, I mean, people want real leadership on this.
Yeah, and you've seen Janeese Lewis-George talk about actually being a prosecutor in the past. It's something more recent that we've seen because, I think, of the emphasis on what we've seen in some of these situations, especially in Navy Yard, especially on the streets with carjacking still, violent crime, although down. They're still obviously too high for folks. Kenyan McDuffie is out there talking about hiring 1,000 new MPD officers, for example. Restructuring bonuses to make sure that we have the adequate resources on the streets. And then, of course, Gary's going to lean likely into his military background. He's an Army veteran and talk about the actual role that the federal government should play in terms of policing.
We are hoping for a good debate tonight, as you see there. Our moderators, Jim Lokay, Katie Barlow there, Mo Lethe taking the stage as well. Stay with us here at Fox 5. Debate is happening in just a few minutes. We will be right back. Thank you for joining us here on The 6. In about 2 minutes is the live debate in the Democratic primary for D.C. mayor, hosted by Fox 5 and Georgetown University. Jim Lokay, Katie Barlow, moderating along with Georgetown's Mo Lethe. Again, stay with us. The big debate after the break.
D.C. decides. The city prepares to elect a new mayor for the first time in more than a decade. With 29 days left until the primary, candidates answering how they'll tackle the top concerns for people in all 8 wards. From keeping the city safe to lowering the cost of living and addressing lagging test scores. Tonight's questions helped shaped by you, the viewers. Fox 5 teaming up with Georgetown University's Institute of Politics for D.C. Decides, the Democratic primary mayoral debate. And it all starts right now. Good evening. I'm Jim Lokay from Fox 5 DC, and I'm joined here on stage tonight with my co-moderators, Katie Barlow, and she's chief legal correspondent for Fox 5 DC, and Georgetown Institute of Politics and Public Service Executive Director Mo Elathi. In just under a month, DC voters will choose their nominees in the race to become the city's next mayor. There are 7 candidates vying for the Democratic nomination. Tonight, we're joined by 3 of them. They have all met the debate qualification criteria. Let's introduce them now. They are former DC Councilmember Kenyan McDuffie, current DC Ward 4 Councilmember Janeese Lewis-George, and businessman Gary Goodweather. For the next hour, candidates will face questions from the 3 of us, many of them shaped by our Fox 5 viewers, as well as people from the Georgetown community. We'll ask them about the pressing issues facing the district. Candidates, you'll have 60 seconds to answer each question. We will have 30 seconds for follow-up. That is at the moderator's discretion. We have asked, by the way, our audience to withhold their applause until the end of the debate. They have agreed, and we thank you for that.
The next mayor of this city is going to inherit enormous challenges. You all have made a number of promises on the campaign trail, but you don't have a magic wand. And many of those promises, to get them over the finish line, you're going to need council votes, you're going to need budget dollars, sometimes you'll need agreement from neighboring states, and often you'll need approval from the federal government. So our goal tonight is to go beyond the promises to understand how. How are you going to get these things done, and why should the voters believe that you can?
So let's get started. And we're going to begin with the issue that voters tell us matters the most, the high cost of living. All of you have put out a number of proposals on issues like affordable housing, utility costs, childcare, grocery access. Each one of those is a major initiative that will require significant political capital, and you won't be able to accomplish them all in your first 90 days. So which one do you push through first? And how do you get it done? You each have 60 seconds, and we'll begin with Mr. McDuffie.
Well, the first issue that I'm going to push through is making sure that we keep people safe. And right now, we know that public safety really depends on public trust. And the trust in the Metropolitan Police Department has been shaken. So I'm going to focus on making sure that we appoint top quality leadership at the top of the Metropolitan Police Department so that we can restore a culture of accountability and transparency. And then we're going to focus on making sure that we deliver safe cities across the District of Columbia, regardless of where people live, regardless of their zip code. We don't need additional money to keep people safe. And as mayor, it's going to be my top priority.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Lewis-George.
Yeah. We are facing an affordability crisis in this city. People from the middle class to the margins are feeling the squeeze. And so as mayor, I'm going to prioritize building more housing so we have more affordable housing and lower costs. We're going to expand access to universal access for childcare so that no family is spending more than 7% of their income on childcare. And we're going to do that by expanding our childcare subsidy so every family qualifies for it. And we're going to lower utility costs by expanding community solar, by coming after data centers, by correcting the ROE and the investments to Pepco shareholders while their gain makes sure that our taxpayers are paying more. And we're going to do the things that we know can make this city work better. And we are going to do that by leveraging our federal dollars, not giving $34 million back to HUD, not leaving $60 million on the table for sustainability. And we're also going to make sure that we don't leave dollars on the table, and we actually have a fiscal plan for all of our agencies to save more money.
Thank you. That's time. Mr. Goodweather?
Although there's many factors that are taken into consideration with the cost of living, question is what one in particular. I'm going to focus on housing, number one, and I'm going to completely revamp the Department of Buildings and the permitting and approval timeline and the cost to even be able to get a permit. Number two is that I'm going to reduce real estate taxes. We are going to rewrite the tax code because the tax code currently is making our city less affordable. And finally, I've committed to building 50,000 multi-generational homes in our city. DC CFO has indicated that 10,000 units, and this is a conservative number, are offline for many different reasons, including just being able to not get a certificate of occupancy or to be able to invest the dollars to be able to bring them back online. To be able to meet our immediate goals and be able to do it in the most affordable way possible, we're immediately going to bring those 10,000 units back online. Thank you.
Candidates, you mentioned housing. We heard that. And Councilmember Lewis-George, you proposed building 72,000 new units of housing. Mr. McDuffie, you proposed 12,000 new units, but preserving 20,000. And we just heard the 50,000 number from Mr. Goodweather. The problem is right now, with high interest rates, with construction costs, and yes, with D.C. regulations, the private market isn't necessarily building. So what can you do as mayor to get them building again, and how do you get it through a council that may resist tax breaks or zoning changes? Ms. Lewis-George, we'll start with you, and you have 60 seconds.
Thank you. We can build more housing. This moment calls for us to have an aggressive plan to do so because so many of our families are facing displacement in this city. We're going to build more housing by becoming a city of yes, where we streamline the building process. We overhaul the building codes to make it easier for people to build housing. We're going to leverage our pension funds, billions of dollars that we can leverage to open up the doors for financing to continue to build more housing. And we're going to leverage our federal dollars and make sure that we're using all of it to build more affordable housing here in the city.
Ms. Lewis-George, thank you. Mr. Goodweather, the question to you.
I'm an expert in building housing in this city. My company has built housing throughout the entire city, and I've worked with all different types of organizations, nonprofits, universities to be able to build housing for them as well. The way that we are going to be able to get first thing is we have to bring capital back to our city, and I want to make this clear. I talk to owners, developers, money all the time, and we have been redlined. Number one is investing directly in D.C. residents by bringing capital directly. Looking at the time, making sure I read that right. We are going to bring. I'm going to connect capital directly with D.C. residents so that they are part of the process, so they are building in their neighborhoods, and they are part of what we are trying to accomplish by building more. This is what I have done for the past 30 years, and this is what I am going to do for the city and for the residents of Washington, D.C.
Mr. Goodweather, thank you. Mr. McDuffie.
As council member, I delivered transformational laws that increase the funding for housing construction in the District of Columbia. And as mayor, I'm going to build more housing. I'm going to do it faster. I'm going to make it less expensive. We're going to focus on building 12,000 units of new housing, preserve 20,000 units of existing affordable housing, and build 1,500 units of family-sized housing to make sure that families can afford to stay here too. That's a realistic plan. The Washington Post called my opponent's plan a fantasy. There's rhetoric in politics, and then there's reality. I'm running to be a mayor that is honest with residents, to deliver on things that we can get done on day one. I've demonstrated a track record as a council member, delivering policies that have sent hundreds of millions of dollars to our Housing Production Trust Fund to build more affordable housing and preserve existing housing. I've also delivered policies that make it easier to build near metros and other places and preserve affordable housing. And as mayor, I'm going to actually deliver on my promises.
Mr. McDuffie, thank you. You mentioned Ms. Lewis-George. I'd like to give you 30 seconds to respond.
Again, this moment calls for a leader who's ready to meet this moment. And we have a housing crisis. And 12,000 housing units is woefully not going to meet that moment. That's going to guarantee that more black and brown residents are displaced, more seniors are displaced from their homes. So my plan to build housing is one that is realistic and is based on the need this city has asked for over and over again, which is more affordable housing, more family-sized unit housing. And it's not just about building the housing, it's also about enforcement of housing, another topic that we should talk about because it's important that we make sure we stand up for our seniors and our residents who are living in conditions that they don't deserve to be living in this moment.
Just to understand the plan, you talked about, Mr. McDuffie, what you did on the council, but the problem still exists that the private market does not want to build. I didn't hear an answer on how you incentivize the private market.
You incentivize the private market by making government work faster and better. You make Department of Buildings and every agency that touches housing in the District of Columbia more efficient. You create a fast lane for those deals that exist to unlock those deals and make sure that they're not getting stuck because of the time it takes in government to deliver on those permits. We're going to make these agencies work faster. We're going to also put in more funding across the continuum of housing that we need so people can actually afford to live here and own homes too. We're going to put money in our HPAP, our Housing Purchase Assistance Program, and purchase assistance programs for employees as well. There are ways to cut the red tape and make sure that we restore investor confidence in our market. You do not restore investor confidence by what the Washington Post said, having a plan that is unrealistic and a fantasy. And that's what Ms. Lewis-George's plan is.
Thank you, Mr. McDuffie.
I'd like to, may I respond?
No, we're going to move on. We actually have a viewer question next, where one of our Fox 5 viewers submitted a question that I think all families will relate to in the district. Many middle-income families in the district earn too much to qualify for a number of the assistance programs that you all support, yet they still have to pay full price for housing and childcare, transportation, groceries, healthcare. They feel overlooked. They're not low income, but they're far from wealthy. What specific policies would you support to provide meaningful relief for middle-income families while still protecting programs for residents with the greatest needs? And Mr. Goodweather, we'll begin with you.
Perfect. It goes right into it. Number one is that through my Fare Free DC plan, we are going to provide free transit, free Metro Rail and free Metro Bus to all DC residents. It's going to put $1,000 for regular transit riders back in their pocket. This is an economic driver. It will continue to have dollars circulate within our community to grow our tax base. Number one. Number two is we are going to be able to bring down the cost of even food. We are going to build first of its kind indoor controlled vertical farms here in an urban environment. And we can do it even within the office buildings that currently exist. We are going to produce produce and create jobs of all different kinds here in the city. Finally, affordability. I just want to throw out that these definitions of AMI and FMI, the covenants that we were put in, they're fiction. We are coming up with a new definition.
You. That is time. Mr. McDuffie, you have 60 seconds. Sir.
Absolutely. I think one of the most important affordability issues is housing. And the housing that I'm going to build is going to go across incomes, including deeply affordable housing for our low-income residents, but also that missing middle. We want our teachers to be able to afford to live here. We want our first responders, our firefighters, our police officers. We also want our child care workers to be able to afford to live here. So I'm going to build the housing so that everybody can afford to live here, excluding our middle-class residents and middle-income residents. But we're also going to make sure that we're making child care more affordable as well. We're going to reduce the barriers and the red tape to building facilities downtown where we have all those vacant office buildings. We're going to make it easier to open up a child care facility there. We're also going to make it easier to open up a child care facility in home. And we're going to make sure that we are producing the types of incentives so that we keep middle-income residents here. They have been the backbone of our economy for years, and that's the way that we're going to grow. We're going to grow by making sure that we have policies in place that help everybody. That's using an equity lens, making sure that everybody gets what they need. We're going to make childcare more affordable and housing
McDuffie, thank you.
as well.
That's time. Briefly, for all three of you, the current mayor, and we will get to you, Ms. Lewis-George. The mayor, in having to make tough budget decisions, has decided to propose cutting child care subsidies, making child care more difficult to afford. Just briefly, yes or no, do you support the current cuts in the tough budget situation? Mr. Goodweather?
No, I do not support the cuts.
Ms. Lewis-George?
No, I don't.
And in fact,
Mr. McDuffie?
no.
Ms. Lewis-George, you have 60 seconds.
Thank you. When I first got to the council, I passed the Homes and Hearts Amendment, which created the first of its kind pay equity fund that raised the wages for black and brown women who were underpaid as early childhood educators. And my plan to expand child care subsidy is exactly for families who are from the middle class to the margins feeling it. Because we know that here in D.C., we have the highest child care cost in the country right here in our city, with families spending over $2,400. So what we're doing is expanding our current child care subsidy program so that every family, no matter your income, qualifies for this program, and you don't have to spend more than 7% of your income on child care. But I think most people want to hear is that our government needs to work better. So if you are a taxpayer in this city, you deserve a government that can deliver on basic government services. Cleaning up your snow, picking up your trash, dealing with the rats. That's the other thing that I can promise to our workers here in our city and our community in our city, that a government like ours that doesn't function well can function better, with better agency heads, with better leadership tasks, with delivering on basic government services as well.
Briefly, where do you find the money for the child care subsidy if you don't support it and you want to make it more affordable? Where's the money in the budget?
Thank you. It's a great question. We are going to create a dedicated revenue source, just like I did in 2021. We did a dedicated revenue source for the pay equity fund, and those funds were swept by the mayor. When I'm mayor, those funds won't be swept. We also are going to make sure that we close a loophole that benefits Virginia and Maryland at the behest of D.C., meaning we don't get the benefits. And that's not a new tax on D.C. residents. That's not a new tax on D.C. businesses. That's being able to gain revenue to be able to support D.C. residents in a very real way. And so that's how we're going to do it. And again, we're going to leverage our Department of Education and our federal funds to make it happen for D.C. residents.
All right, as we talk about cost of living, there was one issue that I think it affects everybody in this room, all of you at home. Gas and electric bills. In D.C., they have gone up more than 90% in 5 years. But whoever the mayor is, the mayor does not set rates. That is up to the Public Service Commission. And regardless of which one of you may become mayor of the district, you may inherit commissioners appointed by Mayor Bowser for full terms. We know the utility companies have fought regulation at every term. So appointing the right people may not be an option on day one. And assuming the companies aren't going to cooperate voluntarily, what can you do as mayor to bring bills down? Now, Mr. McDuffie, you have 60 seconds.
Yeah, you can always go to the Public Service Commission and ask for resignations and appoint the people who are going to fight for more affordability in our utilities.
I'm sorry, sir. Just briefly, what if they don't give you those resignations and the code only allows you to remove them for cause?
Yeah, so what we're going to do is make sure that we're telling the truth and being honest with people about why your utility prices are actually going up. The truth is that demand on the grid, largely driven by data centers, is increasing the prices of utilities. 70% of what people are seeing in terms of increases on their bill has nothing to do with PEPCO. But we're going to make sure we hold PEPCO accountable and hold those data centers accountable. We're going to have automatic enrollment in the programs that help our low-income residents and our seniors so they can afford the utilities that they're paying for. And we're going to also make sure that we are investing in more solar. We're going to make sure we have renewable alternatives to provide energy across the District of Columbia. And we're going to support renewables like solar. And there's one person standing on this stage who voted against expanding solar in the District of Columbia.
And we'll let you get to that in a second, but I want to ask you, how do you hold data centers, and we'll get to the candidates, we'll get to you in a moment on this one. How do you hold data centers responsible? They're in Maryland and Virginia. They abide by different regulators. So what does somebody in D.C. have to do with something that happens in Virginia or Maryland?
Yeah. Well, actually, it's the PJM. It's a regional electricity supplier. So they also feed from Maryland, D.C., and actually 14 jurisdictions. So we can work together to hold them accountable. That's something that we can do. You look at what Maryland just did with passing a law to hold data centers accountable. We should be doing that right now at the Council of the District of Columbia. So you can hold data centers accountable. And as mayor, I'll make sure I do that.
All right, let's get back to the gas and electric bills. Ms. Lewis-George.
Thank you. We need to do several things. We are going to expand community solar, government solar, as well as allow for things like balcony solar. That is going to allow us to create energy credits. That's going to allow people's bills to go down. In addition to that, we're going to right-size PEPCO's shareholders' guaranteed profit so they don't continue to rake in dollars while your bills continue to go up. We're also going to use legal tools. The Attorney General of the District of Columbia and our Attorney General Brian Schwab has the ability to use our legal tools to hold these data centers accountable. And we're going to build relationships in Congress to work with our federal Congress to make sure they're putting in regulations to bring in these data centers. We're also going to work hard as a city to make sure that we get people converted from making sure that their houses can do the work that needs to happen. And that's why we shouldn't be leaving $60 million in sustainability fund on the table. Unlike my colleague who had sole responsibility of PEPCO, who his PEPCO executives are funding his campaign, he's not looking out for you. He's looking out for them. And we need a mayor who's ready to look out for the people of this city.
Mr. Goodweather.
I love this.
Let's hear Mr. Goodweather. We'll get back to you, Mr. McDuffie.
I love this. They're blaming each other, and I'm offering a solution. We are Washington, D.C. We will become one of the leading producers of clean energy in the country. The way that we're going to do it is on a two-track system. Immediately reducing your electric bills by community solar, enhanced geothermal, heat water recovery systems with DC water, thermal hydrolysis by expanding.
The question about solar, though, that still takes time. You can't do that immediately.
So actually, the technology exists today. It's just hasn't been the will to do it. Actually, I am doing this in my private sector work right now. DC Water would love to expand this. All of these technologies that I'm talking about are being utilized right now, but the DC government has been putting the cost and the burden on DC residents and on businesses. It is a city obligation to be able to provide energy for our city, and that is what we're going to do. On the longer term, we are going to build a 4th-generation air-cooled nuclear reactor on federal land in D.C. It will reduce the price.
Mr. Goodweather, thank you. We'll get back to that in a moment.
Ms. Lewis-George, a brief follow-up here, and you can respond to there'll be time for you to respond as well. Your only legislative action in this sphere was a 90-day pause on shutoffs, which was a temporary move. How do you address rising energy costs for Washingtonians who have paid their rising bills and haven't had to face shutoffs?
Absolutely. We have legislation that has passed through the Transportation Environment Committee, the GRID Act, which is something that will be enacted on day one when I'm in office, because I believe that that's a real solution to this problem. I also have done legislation to make sure that residents could not have to opt in, but automatically be placed in to automatic programming that can allow them to be able to pay their bills. And so it's important in this moment to recognize that we need leadership that shows up. When Washington Gas was trying to spend billions of dollars on extending the pipelines, rebuilding the pipelines, I stood up, I wrote letters, I stood up at the hearing to do things about that as well.
Mr. McDuffie, your response, sir?
You know, there are people who are so tired of people who make promises just to get elected. And right now what you're hearing is candidate Lewis-George. Because as council member, she actually voted against solar. As council member, I wrote our renewable energy portfolio standards to make sure that we had more renewables that are options for us as alternatives to what we've been seeing. I also wrote with Mary Che our Clean Energy Act, which is one of the most ambitious clean energy bills in the country. That's what I did as council member. So you can trust that as mayor, I'm going to make sure we fight to reduce utility costs.
Thanks. Mr. Goodweather, I want to jump in with a follow-up on something you talked about. You mentioned building a nuclear reactor in D.C.
Yes, I did.
Where would you put it? Who would have to approve it? And how do you sell something that's arguably controversial to D.C. residents who want relief now, not 10, 15 years from now?
Yeah, I mean, two things. First of all, that's why we are going to invest in the technologies that already exist today, which I discussed, like enhanced geothermal, which the district government is doing it itself right now, community solar and thermal hydrolysis. Those technologies, when they're expanded at scale, can bring down utility costs almost immediately for all D.C. residents, number one. Number two is that we can do it on federal land, JBAB, Department of Homeland Security. There is a marketing problem with this. I get that, but this is the right thing to do.
Thank you very much, Mr. Goodweather.
All right, we're going to move on to public safety, another critical topic for the district. The council passed a permanent youth curfew, but it won't take effect until late summer, and we're already in that gap period. And Saturday night, teenagers were throwing chairs during a violent brawl inside a Navy Yard Chipotle. Councilmember Lewis-George, you voted no on the curfew. Mr. McDuffie supports it. Mr. Goodweather has called curfews a fundamental failure. None of that matters now. It's the law. But right now, there is no curfew in place, and summer hasn't started yet. So what do you do? Ms. Lewis-George, you have 60 seconds.
Thank you. As a prosecutor, I understand it's important for us to use various tools to deal with public safety. As an executive, you have to decide which tools you use and when you use them. And right now, using the curfew as a tool for our young people is dangerous. It is dangerous because we have federal troops who are in our city, mass ICE agents who are in our city. And these are the people enforcing this law on our young people. And these are not individuals who are trained in de-escalation. They are not accountable to D.C. residents. In fact, D.C. residents have already been killed without any accountability because we don't have accountability of those agencies. So as mayor, I think it is important that we use the right tools and we don't put the risk of our youth being harmed or killed without the real oversight that's necessary. But I do think what we do is expand our youth programming. We do summer youth employment throughout the year, extended hours. We expand our DPR centers. We leverage our unions and apprenticeships to create jobs and pathways for our young people. We give them the tools they need to succeed, and we address chronic absenteeism.
Mr. Goodweather, you have 60 seconds.
The current curfews are a failure of the system that my two colleagues who have been on council for a combined 20 years have failed to address. So what do? Number one, if you're going to have curfews, which are an extreme measure, you need to have a defined timeline when you're going to exit it. Number two is you are going to have very clear protocols of how to keep the community safe, which I got to say right now, that doesn't seem to really be working. And number three is you need a plan to be able to remediate it. And this comes to leadership too. I served in the United States Army as a captain, and that accountability starts with me, and it starts with the culture that you put down. We also need to address the underlying causes of why this is happening, and that is poverty and mental health. And I will say it until I do not need to say it again. Mental health is health, and we are going to hire more mental health professionals.
Mr. Goodweather, that's time. Just briefly, sir, you mentioned curfews, which are not in effect until late summer when they get approved, and you said what's not working. Is the plan to focus on mental health for those few weeks before it takes effect? What gets it done before it takes effect?
Yes, the plan is absolutely to hire more mental health professionals. Actually, the way that I have budgeted is going to cost, first of all, I want a mental health professional, a special educator, a social worker in every school. The cost of this is going to be between $90 million and $100 million. We have already identified revenue sources within our Department of Education budget to be able to fund that. We have to be addressing the mental health of D.C. residents and our youth to make real progress.
Thank you, sir. Mr. McDuffie, you have 60 seconds.
What we need to do is treat these teen takeovers like the public safety emergency that they are. Doing nothing is not an option. We all saw what happened at Chipotle, and it didn't have to happen. The council had an opportunity to act just a few weeks ago, before the curfew expired, but they didn't act because Janeese Lewis-George shut it down. She asked them to wait, right? She put politics over public safety, and you had a dad watching kids almost assault his child, trying violently to shield his kids from the assaults that were happening inside that Chipotle. That's not the way that we keep people safe. And we're going to have we don't need the federal government helping us with law enforcement. We need trust. And the federal government, ICE, HSI, is eroding the public trust. And I'm going to sign an executive order to rescind ICE when I become mayor. But if we're waiting for Janeese Lewis-George to keep us safe, we're going to be waiting for a long time. We're going to have more federal people in this city because we need to act, extend the juvenile curfew and address root causes. It's not an either or. We need to do both.
Thank you, Mr. McDuffie. Briefly, as a follow-up, when the curfew does take effect, U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro says that she's asking MPD to issue citations. And as we just saw the Chipotle brawl happen, she said, today, we're coming for you, referring to the kids, and we're coming for your parents. She plans to prosecute parents. She's going to need MPD to enforce that. Would you direct MPD to cooperate with her office on this? Just briefly, Mr. Goodweather.
No, no, no.
Mr. McDuffie.
And that's directed to Jeanine Pirro.
And Ms. Lewis-George.
No.
Okay.
May I respond to the rebuttal?
You may briefly respond since he called you out. Yeah.
Thank you. I think what the public needs to understand is Mr. McDuffie, in the past, has stated that he also didn't support the youth curfew. He actually, at a debate, raised up and said, no, I don't support a youth curfew. But now that he is taking big Trump donor dollars and Republican dollars, he's now using cheap political points from the Republicans to score in this moment, and it's disingenuous and disheartening. Because he knows that we need to support our youth. And in fact, my committee, off Department of Public Works and DPR, funded today extended hours for youth through the DPR. So we have been doing the work to make sure our young people have what is needed, and he's scoring political cheap points, and he should not do that.
Let's move on.
Keep our students at danger and risk.
To the next topic, and that's National Guard and ICE cooperation. You all have said that you would end MPD cooperation with ICE and that you'd send the National Guard home. But supporters of it say that crimes drop during Guard deployment, and the federal government has shown that it's willing to withhold funds from cities that resist. If the president cuts federal funding to the district because you refuse to cooperate as mayor, how do you make up that shortfall in a budget that's already stretched thin? Mr. Goodweather, your first step.
First thing that I will say is that I was a United States Army captain and I served in the National Guard. And what is happening to our city is antithetical to the oath that I took to the Constitution, number one. And I will not allow collaboration between MPD and ICE. This is a failure of not fully staffing the Metropolitan Police Department and making them a part of the community, ensuring that they receive the best training, ensuring that they have the ability to live in the city that they serve, in the communities that they serve. The dollars to be able to fund our Metropolitan Police Department, there are decisions that will be made, and I will ensure that our Metropolitan Police Department is fully staffed, especially since not having a fully staffed police department actually costs DC residents more in overtime.
But just as a follow-up, and I
Please.
would ask the others to consider this as well. The question was, if the federal government penalizes the district budget because of a refusal to cooperate, how do you make up for that?
Look, when I look at the budget, I mean, first of all, we need to grow our economy, right? I am creating a net positive economy, and I'm going to do it without raising taxes. But it is also, I am an expert in budgets. I have an MBA from Johns Hopkins University with concentration in finance. And I will go line item by line item to the budget, and that is what I'm going to do day one when I am mayor. And I will find programs that are working and the ones that are not,
Thank you,
and
Mr.
I will
Goodweather.
utilize
Mr.
money
McDuffie, you have
to
60
fund
seconds.
So we're going to make Washington, D.C. the safest city in America. And there won't be any need to cut the funding because we're going to ensure that we have the police officers that we need across all 8 wards of our city that show up before somebody calls 911. We're going to make sure that we have community-oriented policing across the District of Columbia so that we're keeping people safe before the National Guard or ICE at HSI are even needed. They're in the District of Columbia now, and they are eroding the trust that people have in policing. They're actually making us less safe. And I'm going to continue to make the case that we do not need them, especially when our vulnerable neighbors are feeling threatened, living in the shadows, afraid to come out of their homes, for fear of being snatched off the streets. I'm going to fight and deliver for them to keep them safe, to make sure that they no longer have to live in the shadows. We're going to bring them out of the shadows and into the light.
Mr. McDuffie, in the beginning you said we don't need additional money to keep people safe, but we're talking about losing money. The president is willing to withhold federal dollars. So not only do we need money to make up for that, there has to be money to be able to fulfill your plan too. So the question is, what do you do if we're at a net negative for federal dollars because of that decision?
I will not let that happen.
How
My
can
number
you
one
control the
priority
president?
as mayor is to keep people safe. I'm going to make sure that we do everything humanly possible. We have a $21 billion budget, right? That makes it feasible to be able to redirect funding, and starting with MPD's overtime. MPD, we spend more than $100 million in overtime at the Metropolitan Police Department. You hire the officers
Just briefly,
that you need.
sir, I'm sorry.
You
What
hire
if
the
everything
officers that you
possible
need.
means cooperating with ICE because that's the only
I'm
option
telling you how
to
to
keep
get
the
the funding.
money?
I'm telling you how to get the funding. You hire the officers that you need, you reduce overtime spending, and you redirect the funds to keep people safe.
All right,
That's one of the ways you can do it.
Let's bring Ms. Lewis-George into the conversation. How do you handle it if the president withholds funding because of your decision not to cooperate?
Yeah, I think we do a few things. First, we use our legal tools. We go to court and we file an injunction. We use every legal tool we can to fight back. We go to Congress. We walk the halls of Congress because Congress is who authorizes budgets, not the president. And we build the relationships in Congress that we need to ensure that we are filibuster proof and we don't have Democrats siding with Republicans and taking away district funds. In addition to building those relationships in Congress and using every legal tool, we look at our system. We take a forensic analysis of all of our agencies and try to find savings, starting with health. We could save about 5 to 6% of our funding if we switch to a value-based system like like Maryland. So we take a forensic analysis of our agencies and cut spending, and that means looking at our contracts and not just falling for $1 million sports betting deals and costing district dollars money, not approving contracts that cost this district $13 million to clean up snow and then ending up in fraudulent deals. So we're going to make our city better by making sure we don't take the first deal on the first day like my opponent was ready to do with RFK. We leverage our dollars and we build the money we need as a city
to a topic where I think you all want to go and where you have all already mentioned. MPD. You will be able to in response to this, sir, and it's where you want to go, I think, because you've mentioned it already. MPD does not have enough officers to answer 911 calls. To fill that gap, they mandate overtime. And last year, that blew the budget by $100 million. The city budgeted $133 million, and they went over to $133 million. That is obviously not sustainable. But if you reduce officers, then overtime goes up. If you add officers, that costs money too. So what is your plan to fix this, and where specifically does the money come from, Mr. McDuffie? You have 60 seconds.
I'll answer that question, but I want to go back to something else because candidate Janeese Lewis-George is talking about all these things she's going to do to keep people safe. And that's the campaign rhetoric that people are tired of. All you have to do is look at her record. Every time she had a chance to vote with victims and to make sure you increase safety, she voted against it. If you look at her record, she voted against holding violent people in pre-trial. She voted against holding them in jail pre-trial. She voted against violent tenants being evicted on properties where they pose an imminent threat. She voted against making strangulation a felony, and she should explain to victims why she did that. She voted against extending the teen curfews, and she hasn't offered anything as an alternative except when she became a candidate for mayor. There's candidate Janeese Lewis-George, and then there's council member that has a record that is quite different than what we're hearing in terms of promises today.
I didn't hear an answer to the question, though, and I'll give you a chance to respond. I didn't hear an answer to the question of how do you fix the overtime problem and where does the money come from?
I can tell you how to fix overtime, and I'll do it 20 seconds. Fix the overtime problem by slashing, hiring the police officers that you actually need. You make sure you boost the hiring bonuses. You also make the salaries more competitive. You boost morale and decrease the separations that we're seeing where people are leaving the department today, not because of retirement, but because of burnout. We're going to address the burnout issue. We're going to hire at the top talent to make sure we restore a culture of accountability and transparency.
I'll give you a chance to respond and also answer the question specifically. Where does the money come from, and how do you fix the overtime problem?
Thank you. As mayor, the safety of every resident is a non-negotiable for me. I am a former prosecutor who is the only person on this stage who prosecuted the most serious crimes here in Washington, D.C. And I understand that we have to do enforcement work, intervention work, and prevention work, and we have to do it at the same time. My opponent, again, I think it's the Republican dollars that he's taking, is using cheap talking points. He knows that I voted for the permanent legislation for Secure D.C. to do all of the things that he said I'm against. He knows that as a practicing prosecutor, I said we should not be changing legal statutes on a 30-day basis because it would leave the courts in an inconsistent space. He knows that during the pandemic, we stopped the evictions because we didn't want people outside when we were saying to stay inside. But instead of telling the truth, he continues to parrot these Republican talking points. And that's because he's taking Republican Trump donor dollars. In fact, he took Trump's attorney, Jim Wall's dollars most recently. Are you going to return Jim Wall's, Trump's top lawyer dollars? Are you going to return the Trump donor dollars so that the people of the district can trust you, Mr. McDuffie?
Ms. Janeese Lewis-George, I appreciate it, and I appreciate you want to respond. Perhaps Mr. Goodweather can actually answer the question, and then we'll both give you some time. Please, sir.
I'm going to try to do this as fast as possible to get to your answer. Let's just quickly put this in context. Our economy is down 8.3% just this year. Our unemployment here in Washington, D.C. is the highest in the country. Our spending continues to rise. Our spending has gone up nearly 70% over the past 6 years. The way, number one, that we are going to create the workforce that we need, create the law enforcement officers we need, is that I'm creating a transformational citywide workforce development program. We call it the Capital Corps, and it has a law enforcement branch, and it will provide the education, the training, and the skills, and the leadership to be able to recruit more officers aggressively. And again, as I said before, it is important that our officers are able to live in the communities that they serve. Where are the dollars going to come from? A few different things. First of all, there are changes. We are spending continuous.
Mr. Goodweather, thank you. We only have about 30 seconds left. I'll give you the final chance to respond, Mr. McDuffie.
Yes, my opponent has accepted donations from Republicans and oil and gas lobbyists. And the reason she knows who donated to my campaign is because I filed my reports. I actually followed the law and followed the rules. And there's only one person on this stage who's actively under investigation for violations of the campaign finance laws, and it's Ms. Janeese Lewis-George. I follow the rules, and that's what sets me apart from her. She breaks the rules and is actively under investigation.
This is absolutely not true. I've not taken in any Republican donors, no oil dollars. He's the only candidate taking Trump donor dollars, including Jim Wall, taking Pepco executive dollars, taking union buster dollars. And guess what? Has filed these baseless complaints. Now, this is a political tool that this machine has used before. We've seen it when they did it to Vincent Gray. We've seen it when they did it to Alyssa Silverman in his last race. These Republicans have filed these baseless complaints. They're the same Republicans who cost D.C. dollars through the Charles Allen recall, and he paid them $25,000 to file a complaint against me. We're going to move on to the next topic. This is dirty politics that doesn't inspire our young people to be involved.
Let's move on to the next major area, and that's economic development. D.C. has always been a federal government town. But what that looks like is changing fast. Thousands of federal jobs are gone, office buildings sitting empty downtown, tax revenue declining. Whichever views the next mayor is going to inherit this economy. It shrank by 8.3% in the fourth quarter of last year alone. What's your vision for what D.C.'s economy looks like on the other side of this? And what's the first initiative? And notice I asked for the first, meaning singular, first initiative you propose to deal with it. Let's start with you, Ms. Lewis-George.
Thank you. I believe we can make this city, again, a city of yes. The first initiative is going to be establishing a downtown business corporation that has finance and bonding authority, because we need to make sure we're making the right investments in our downtown. But we as a city know that we've lost a lot during the federal government. But guess what? D.C. has its strengths, and we're going to leverage those strengths. Those strengths include our universities. We have some of the best universities in this city, across the country, in this city. We're going to leverage our universities to build more housing, to be able to expand their campuses, and to make D.C. an innovation district. We have the best hospitals. We're going to use our hospitals and leverage them to create innovation and research and programming. We're going to leverage our sports. In fact, we're going to leverage our women's sports, which hasn't got enough credit. Go Spirit. We are a women's sports town, and we can leverage this moment. We also have amazing creators across this district. We are a town of arts and music and theater and culture, and we are going to leverage that as well. And we're going to leverage our unions, the 22 unions I have been backed by, to build apprenticeship programs and job pipelines starting in the 6th grade, so our young people have jobs.
Thank you very much.
That's how we build our city.
Appreciate it. Let's go to Mr. Goodweather.
I'll tell you the first thing that I'm going to do, but I want to make sure that I get across that to be able to have everyone thrive in Washington, D.C., we have to create a city that is affordable to live in. If you can't afford to live here and if you can't afford to work here, not much else matters. What I'm going to do is create this transformational workforce development program. It's called the Capital Corps. And I modeled it after my time in the United States military, after AmeriCorps, and after the Marion Barry Summer Jobs Program. It has a youth track. It has an adult track and a returning citizens track. It will provide the education, the training, and the skills that D.C. residents need to be able to organically grow our economy. We get to utilize, we are Washington, D.C., we get to utilize all of the incredible resources, all of the people that we have here in the city to grow our own economy.
Thank you. Mr. McDuffie?
So my vision is a vision of economic growth with guardrail. We've seen where a city just focuses on building up buildings downtown and people get left behind. People get displaced. Well, I'm going to grow the economy, but I'm going to do it in a way that doesn't displace anybody. We're going to create a one-stop portal so that interagency people can speed track how quickly it is that you get a permit in the District of Columbia so you can start a business in 10 days. We've seen it done in other places around the country like Charlotte, where you make sure that government is operating more efficiently. We're also going to make sure that we're focusing on downtown and investing in a way that brings more entertainment, more housing, more hotels, more activity, and giving people a totally different experience. We know that we have the assets already because we have world-class hospitals and world-class universities. The things that are happening right here on this campus in Georgetown, right on the campus at Howard University, the Sheikh Zayed Center at Children's National, we're going to invest in those to create jobs, and we're going to push the federal government to invest in expanding Union Station and create thousands of jobs and connect our residents to that employment.
Follow up to a couple of you. First, Ms. Lewis-George, you throughout the campaign proposed a business tax to fund several of your initiatives. At a time when restaurants are closing, companies are leaving the city, how many new costs can we put on businesses before it ends up driving more of them out?
I think that's a great question, and we don't want to hurt any D.C. businesses or D.C. residents. I'm not proposing a new tax. I am proposing closing a loophole that currently exists that makes it so that D.C. businesses and residents don't get the same business benefits as Maryland and Virginia. That is an additional $500 million in revenue that we can realize as a city that I think is important that we have to leverage. But again, I don't think we need to start there. I think we start with taking a financial accounting and spending of our agencies where we know there's not a lot of spending. I think, again, we leverage our federal dollars and we don't leave dollars on the table in inefficient government.
Thank you, man. That's time.
Mr. McDuffie, 92 restaurants shut down in 2025, nearly double from 3 years earlier. Many owners blame Initiative 82, which is raising the tip minimum wage, and the Restaurant Association endorsed you today, and you voted to partially repeal the wage increase. But a waitress working, or a nurse, as you said off the top, or a teacher, as you said in the beginning, say that they need that to be able to keep up with the cost of living. Why do you side with the owners in this case over the workers and over the D.C. voters who supported it?
I don't side with the owners over the workers. I side with workers. I am of a working class family. I carried mail well before I even went to college. And so I come from a family that had a mom that worked in the federal government and the Library of Congress, and a dad who was an electrician at DPW. So I come from working class stock, and I'm always going to be for workers. And what I did was support workers in a way that didn't threaten the closures of those restaurants. You just mentioned how many restaurants are closed. And they've largely closed because of the costs associated with policies that don't really help workers, nor do they help the businesses that employ them. But let me just say something really quick with my time.
Thank you, Mr. McDuffie.
She just said that she's not
on. I'm sorry. We have to move on there, sir.
All right.
I want to bring something up that Mr. Goodweather brought up a little bit earlier on. First of all, you talked about fare-free Metro.
Yeah.
Metro share with Maryland and Virginia. But I know Ms. Lewis-George has a plan where it would be for SNAP recipients we get free bus. You're saying Metro free for everybody, bus rail, regardless of income. But that could cost as much as $380 million a year, and that's according to your numbers. So how do you make that happen? How do you pay for that?
No one revenue stream is more than about 20% of the overall total. Number one, just by monetizing 5G infrastructure, and other cities are doing this right now, that is on the conservative side, $30 to $50 million per year, number one. Number two is that we have enforcement cameras here in Washington, D.C., and I know how incredibly popular they all are. But they are a revenue generator. That is ultimately not what we're going to do.
Mr. Goodweather, thank you. We need to move on. I apologize. Time is of the essence here tonight. I want to move on to education, something that is near and dear to many people here at Georgetown. D.C. spends more per student than almost anywhere in the country, but when you look at test scores, they still lag some of the national averages, and there are a lot of students who are still behind from COVID learning loss. As mayor, it's up to either one of you to appoint the chancellor. So what is the single biggest failure that's happening in D.C. schools right now, and what would be the first thing that you demand your chancellor fix on that one? And we're going to start with you, Mr. Goodweather.
I think the single biggest failure right now is mentioned that we spend more per student than any jurisdiction in the country with some of the worst long-term results. We continue to just push our students to graduate, but they do not have the financial literacy or the literacy rates that we need. So what are we going to do? Number one, every child reads by third grade. Number two is that we are going to implement citywide. There's been some pilots. We're going to implement citywide the science of reading. This is research-based that has real outcomes. Number three is that I mentioned before, we are going to hire more social workers, more high-impact tutors, more literacy coaches, and more special educators for our city. Specifically, about 16% of our students, of the 100,000 students that we have in the District of Columbia right now, are on an ILP, IEP. And we pay $100,000 per student to be able to support them. We bring that in-house. We can be much more effective with our dollars.
Thank you. Mr. McDuffie, 60 seconds to you.
The achievement gap. We've got one of the fastest improving school districts in the country, according to some statistics. The reality is those improvements are largely uneven. We need to show up for communities across the District of Columbia so they get what they need. We're going to focus on early literacy, making sure that we have quality teachers, quality curriculum. We're going to focus on teacher retention, particularly in high-need communities. We're also going to focus like a laser on attendance. We've got to focus on attendance at an earlier age so that we don't wait till these kids are truant in high school, because attendance problems turn into chronic absenteeism in middle school and then truancy in high school. We're going to address those things, and we're going to make sure we do it through the lens of equity. And we're going to fund our D.C. public schools and our D.C. public charter schools to make sure that all of our students and families have options. A moment ago, she said, I'm not going to propose a new tax. She literally has been on stage and other places saying she's going to propose a business activity tax. That's the truth, and that's what voters deserve to know.
All right, Mr. McDuffie, thank you. Ms. Lewis-George, if you'd like to respond and then go on with the Chancellor question.
Again, D.C. is in need of a mayor who is going to be an education champion, and I'm excited to take education on. I think first we need to address chronic absenteeism, because we can't close our literacy and math gap if students are not in school. And on day one, I'm going to assign one office to deal with chronic absenteeism and not the 5 different agencies that are doing it. And I'm going to institute home visiting, an effective data-proven way to actually reduce chronic absenteeism by having people visit our homes and figure out how we help our families. And those families that need help, we're going to connect them to the family collaboratives. Special education is an area where we have failed our students and our educators as a city, and we need an education champion who's going to have a proactive approach for special education and not a reactive approach, by investing dollars in our special education teachers and their training and our general teachers to be able to do that work. We're going to address the middle school crisis, which is we don't have the middle schools in every part of this city that is necessary to serve our students with the same programming they deserve, like dual language and STEM and STEAM and bilingual programming that we know that students want. And more importantly, we're going to have a relationship with our educators that is not a contentious one, because we know when we invest in our educators, we invest in our students, and we have a successful school district as a result.
Thank you. Real quick follow-up down the line here. Chancellor Lewis Farabee, would you maintain if you were elected mayor? Ms. Lewis-George?
No.
Mr. Goodweather?
No.
Mr. McDuffie?
No.
Thank you.
Mr. McDuffie, you mentioned some of the remarkable improvements that we've made in education. Part of that was related to at least $600 million in federal funding that we no longer have that was post-COVID relief. I want you to consider that when we're also talking about the way to reduce crowding in certain wards, which I think you have said the way to reduce crowding in Ward 3 schools is to improve schools elsewhere in the city. But the funding follows the per pupil equation. So how do you improve schools that are losing enrollment and therefore losing money against the backdrop of federal dollars that have already been lost that have contributed to success?
As you point out, we had one of the fastest improving school districts when it comes to gains post-COVID. And that's something that should be recognized. But the reality is, when you go into certain communities, they don't have the resources, even though the per pupil funding goes and follows all the kids. We need to make sure that we're following the law when it comes both to D.C. public schools and our D.C. public charter schools to ensure that the funding for operations follows both according to the law, as well as the funding for the facilities, so that we can make the sorely needed renovations and ensure access to those schools
Just briefly,
across
does
all
that mean
8 wards.
changing the equation somehow? Changing the per pupil funding equation?
No, it means following the law, because right now there are things that are happening that is not allowing the funding to follow the students, especially when it comes to facilities and the allotment to renovate the schools and charter schools across the District of Columbia.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. Lewis-George, D.C. has more school seats than students, and maintaining half-empty schools is expensive. So should the city close or consolidate some schools, or keep spending to preserve the neighborhood campuses even as enrollment declines?
No, I think we should utilize that space. I propose bringing many of our union apprenticeship programs into some of our schools, allowing young people as early as 6th grade in high school to start getting the training and learning they need for those apprenticeship programs. I propose investing back in music and arts and culture, things that brought students to school and kept them engaged in school. I propose using that space as third spaces for young people people to be able to hang out, to have spaces that they feel safe and comfortable. That's how we utilize that space, by continuing to invest in young people and use our buildings to also inspire them as they grow.
Mr. McDuffie, you mentioned about truancy. I want to go down the line here, 30 seconds each. When you look at more than half of D.C. high schoolers are chronically absent. You've tried the root cause programs. The city's tried enforcement. So whose responsibility? Where does it fall? Is it the students? Is it the schools, the parents, or is it on you, the mayor, if you were to be elected?
It's all of the above. The government has a responsibility to make sure we provide quality education across the District of Columbia, regardless of where a kid lives or regardless of the circumstances that are happening in their homes. We need to make sure we show up for those students in a way that we haven't before to ensure that the resources are meeting them inside the schoolhouse and outside of the school.
We're running short on time. I want to go down the line here. Ms. Lewis-George?
Yes, Mr. McDuffie is famous for passing the buck, just like he passed the buck with your Pepco rates going up when it was his job and his responsibility. It is the mayor's job to make sure students are in school, and the buck stops with the mayor, and that's where the buck stopped with me, and making sure our young people have the resources they need and the educators they need. It's a leadership problem.
Thank you, Mr.
And passing
Goodweather.
the buck is not good leadership.
The issues for truancy, transportation, poverty, mental health. Whose responsibility is it? It's all of ours. We are creating a city where communities serve communities. We need to start acting like it, that we are responsible for one another, that we are connected to one another, and that we...
Mr. Goodweather, thank you.
Thank you. We've covered a lot of ground tonight, and we've got one more question for you. This is the first D.C. election using ranked choice voting. Every voter watching tonight will rank their choices on primary day. And there are 7 candidates on the Democratic ballot, not just the 3 of you on this stage. So I'm asking each of you, not as candidates, but as D.C. voters, when you fill out your ballot, who are you ranking second? And in one sentence, why? And we will begin with, where are we in the rotation?
Mr. McDuffie.
Mr. McDuffie.
Well, I'm going to make it easier for voters. Make a plan, educate yourself about the candidates. But for mayor, I'm ranked number 1 on the ballot already. I'm asking you to rank me number 1 on your ballot.
But the question is, who will you rank as number 2?
The problem with your question is it assumes I might have a number 2.
Okay.
I'm going to rank one person number 1.
So despite the system, you're going to only vote for 1.
The system allows people to rank 1 through 5, but you can rank 1, you can rank 2, you can rank 3, you can rank up to 2, you can rank up to 5. I'm ranking number 1.
George?
I would say to residents, don't rank someone who is taking Trump donor dollars and refuses to return them. Don't rank someone who is taking Pepco executive dollars. Don't rank someone who continues to take union busters dollars. But rank someone who's ready and willing to put people first and have a record of putting people first.
And who is number 2 for you?
I am still making that assessment, and when I do, it will be based on the values of putting people first.
Thank you very much, Mr. Goodweather.
I'm definitely putting myself number 1.
We assume that.
This is important. This is a huge step for democracy in our city, and we need to be the leader. We need to be the leader of democracy. We have 5 votes. Gary Goodweather.
We said
in no
number 2.
particular order.
Give us number 2, sir.
I'm going to say Hope Solomon.
All right.
Thank you very much. All right.
I wanted to do all 5.
We're up against TV time.
Very charitable on that. Candidates, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it very much. That concludes our debate right here. We thank our 3 candidates tonight. Please give them a round of applause. And we want to thank Georgetown University and the Institute of Politics. Post-debate analysis continues right now on Fox Local. Have a great night. Thank you.
Tonight, an all-new 1% Club, followed by an all-new Quiz with Balls.
Right now, using the curfew as a tool for our young people is dangerous. It is dangerous because we have federal troops who are in our city, mass ICE agents who are in our city, and these are the people enforcing this law on our young people.
You're going to have curfews, which are an extreme measure. You need to have a defined timeline when you're going to exit it. Number two is you are going to have very clear protocols of how to keep the community safe. Which I got to say, right now, that doesn't seem to really be working.
What we need to do is treat these teen takeovers like the public safety emergency that they are. Doing nothing is not an option. We all saw what happened at Chipotle, and it didn't have to happen.
One of the big moments from the Fox 5 debate that just wrapped up. Good evening to you and welcome to our post-debate coverage. I'm Tisha Lewis, joined by Republican strategist Malik Abdul and Democratic strategist Kevin Walling. Thank you both for being with us.
Happy debate night.
It is debate night.
What a great night.
Let's get started. First and foremost, let me ask you both, who won the debate? Who walks away the winner here?
Listen, I think Janeese Lewis-George likely walks away the winner. She had to have some kind of issue where the status quo was interrupted. She's leading in every poll, necessarily, obviously leading the fundraising game. So it was her big night to lose, I would say. And she had some great attacks back on Kenyan McDuffie. Kenyan McDuffie, former council member, levied some attacks as well on her record, debating whether she's a council member or a candidate. But again, the status quo is likely the same now that we're a month away from the primary vote actually happening with ballots in people's mailboxes.
Malik, what say you?
Well, I should start off saying full disclosure. I changed my registration to vote in the primary, so I'm officially a Democrat for the purposes of
Welcome. The water is very warm, Malik.
Oh, wow.
Don't worry, I'm
Thanks for
moving
coming
back.
over. Thanks for coming
I'm
over.
moving back. Don't worry. But I think both candidates, technically, they did what they needed to do. You kind of heard it from the start. Kenyan McDuffie was the bureaucrat. Janeese McDuffie was the more progressive one. I think as far as their particular audiences, their supporters, I think they actually did what they should have done. But I think, and it started off, and I'm glad you guys started off with Janeese Lewis-George's response to what happened in Navy Yard. I think that for a lot of people, they'll be looking at how you handle public safety. And when it comes to public safety, Kenyan McDuffie just did a much better job than Janeese Lewis-George, and that's going to come back to bite her.
And there was another candidate at the debate.
Oh, yeah, there was.
Goodweather. So I want to ask you all what really stood out, because I can tell you what stood out to me is when he said about building a nuclear reactor in the district, and you could hear the reaction from the audience.
Yeah.
Kevin.
Yeah, it was kind of a wild moment. I think, Mr. Goodweather kind of struggled, I think, with the format and the timing. He kept looking at the time cues and things like that. This was obviously a big night for him on that debate stage. The two other candidates are leading in every poll and leading in every endorsement. And obviously leading the money race. So this was his opportunity to shine, but it was really, to Malik's point, a competition between the two front runners tonight.
And did he do that?
I'll be honest, I didn't even know the guy was running. So and I feel bad because I pay attention to local politics, and I didn't realize that he was going to be the third. But it was Kenyan McDuffie versus Janeese Lewis-George. And I would be surprised if most people didn't turn in for that too, like exactly the rumble in the jungle.
So maybe the nuclear reactor comment was Goodweather's big moment. What would you say was McDuffie and Janeese Lewis-George's big moment of the night?
Yeah, I think actually right off the bat, I think Lewis-George had this great opportunity to speak directly to the camera. I think that actually is important with, as I said, ballots at home. People are watching this debate with that ballot in front of them for a lot of those people. She spoke directly to camera, like I'm doing right now, to the folks at home, and I think made those convincing arguments. Kenyan McDuffie on affordability, I will say, on housing, thinking more big and broad. Kenyan McDuffie's, to Malik's point, his strongest moment was on public safety, okay? When pressed, what tangibly will you do to increase our officers, take on overtime? And of course, with the backdrop of what we saw in Navy Yard, I think we're also seeing more and more of those activities. The debate over the curfew, I think, was his really strong moment to shine.
And I noticed he also continually pointed out, and it stuck with me in my mind. He said the Councilmember Lewis-George versus the candidate Lewis-George. Malik, how do you think that struck chords at home?
It actually, I think what he was trying to do is to make a distinction between how you campaign versus how you govern, and some of the things that Janeese Lewis-George is proposing. She's been a council member for all of this time, and I think that that's probably some of the issues that she's going to have, because you've been a council member. The things that she talked about, she wanted 20,000, affordable homes and a lot of those things, but they haven't come through from her as a council member, as a legislator. So I think that people are going to look into that. But the big moment at the beginning, and you saw that their consultants were working with them to figure out, when you start this out, here's your big moment, and you saw the distinction. Janeese Lewis-George, hers was affordability. Kenyan McDuffie was public safety. And if you feel as if that the government itself is responsible, or somehow the Trump administration is the reason that the kids are tearing up Chipotle, then more than likely you were Janeese Lewis-George voter.
Malik and Kevin, we're going to be right with you. We're going to come back to you. Let's go out live to Fox 5's Tom Fitzgerald. He is in the post-debate spin room. Fitz, what's your take?
Well, good evening. Yeah, we're here in the Fox 5 spin room. Kenyan McDuffie joins us live now. You're just off the stage. What do you think you accomplished tonight?
Well, I think I got a chance to speak directly to voters to let them know why I'm best suited to be the next mayor of the District of Columbia. I told them about how we're going to fight and deliver for all D.C., how we're going to make our city safer, how we're going to make it more affordable, and how we're going to deliver a government that is more accountable to them, to the people across the District of Columbia, to make sure they can afford to stay here. Our seniors can afford to stay here. Make sure that families aren't feeling the squeeze anymore. We're going to make this city a place where everybody can afford to live.
A lot of topics were covered tonight, but it was pretty clear right out of the gate. You all were asked what your priority was.
Yeah.
Your priority, you said, was public safety.
Yeah.
Is that something that you think is doable under the current situation, the relationship that the district has right now with the federal oversight that's been intruding in how D.C. has been policing itself, these questions about the curfew?
Absolutely. We have to make sure that safety is our #1 priority. I'm a former prosecutor. I know what it's like to fight crime and deliver justice for victims. I'm a former civil rights attorney in President Obama's Justice Department that's traveled the country investigating police departments. I know how to change systems, and I know right now having ICE and the National Guard embedded with our Metropolitan Police Department is making this city less safe. It erodes the trust, Tom, and you cannot have public safety without first having public trust.
And finally, let me ask you about the narrative of this race, because I think your opponents were trying to get to this a bit tonight. It has been talked about you being the establishment candidate in this campaign, and the others have said that they are more populist candidates. Are you the establishment candidate, and would you go up against entrenched power corners in this city if you need to?
I have taken them on. I've taken them on and I've won. When we had a pandemic, we make sure we stop utility shutoffs. I led that charge and delivered. We make sure we stop evictions. I led that charge and delivered. I've gone up against special interests, and they know when it comes to me, I'm going to lead with integrity and deliver for the residents of the District of Columbia every single day.
Kenyan McDuffie, just off the Fox 5 and Georgetown University McCourt School debate stage. We're going to speak to the other candidates and our moderators as we continue tonight here in the spin room. We'll send it back into you.
Looking forward to it, Vince. So we are back shortly. DC decides with post-analysis and coverage of the DC primary mayoral debate. We're back after this.
TEPCO executives are funding his campaign. He's not looking out for you. He's looking out for them.
But if we're waiting for Janeese Lewis-George to keep us safe, we're going to be waiting for a long time.
I love this. They're blaming each other, and I'm offering a solution.
Welcome back to the Fox 5 McCourt School, Georgetown University spin room here today. We are just off the stage moments ago when this mayoral debate wrapped up. We're joined now by D.C. Councilmember Janeese Lewis-George. I'm going to ask you the same first question I just asked Mr. McDuffie. What do you think you accomplished tonight?
I think I accomplished sharing my people first vision with the city and made it clear that I have not only a vision but a plan. And I think that's important because this moment calls for leadership that actually has a vision and a plan for the city and addressing the affordability crisis, standing up to this Trump administration, and making sure just basic government services work for all D.C. residents.
You know, one of the first questions right out of the gate was, what is your priority? What are you going to focus on day one in office? You chose housing. Why do you think that is something that is on people's minds as to some of the other issues people have been talking about lately, especially with the headlines?
Yeah, I mean, housing is the #1 issue. I've knocked thousands of doors and talked to D.C. residents, and from seniors to young people, from the middle class to the margins, people are concerned about the cost of housing and how unaffordable it is. People are also concerned with the fact that many people are being displaced from our city. Many people are no longer can afford rent in our city. And so I think it's important that we address the crisis that people are saying that is hurting them most. And that affordability crisis, whether it's housing or utilities or childcare, are issues that a mayor has to address to be able to continue to have people stay in our city and want to be here in our city.
You know, when people talk about this race, they've kind of been describing both you and Mr. McDuffie as, you know, he being the establishment candidate, you being the anti-establishment candidate. But don't you have to work with the people throughout the entire city at one point? Will you be able to do that if elected mayor?
Absolutely. You know, as council member, I have worked with everyone to pass legislation, to make things happen for people in our city. And I'm going to be a mayor that does the same thing. I have built a broad coalition at this campaign, over 22 union endorsements, Sierra Club, so many organizations, Free DC, right? So we've built a broad coalition. I have young people and old people who are excited for People First DC, and to finally have a mayor who's putting people first.
All right, Councilmember Janeese Lewis-George, you talked for an hour. We appreciate you talking with us for a little bit longer. We're here in the Fox 5 spin room. We'll send it back into you.
Tom, thanks so much. And we are back with more from our post-debate panel. I am joined by Republican strategist Malik Abdul and Democratic strategist Kevin Walling. This go round, let's talk about two key subjects, home rule and the federal government, and also child care and early education. Let's start with home rule and the federal government. Who do you think came out on top?
I think both of them, they realized that there is a lot of feelings, sentiments about Donald Trump, and so they had to kind of hit those markers a bit. I think that Kenyan McDuffie was a bit more realistic. I think both of them kind of got it wrong. Because for one, and it's something that D.C. residents should know, it is not as if that the mayor of D.C. can stop ICE agents from being in D.C. The mayor can stop the cooperation with ICE, but it doesn't prevent ICE agents. So if another president wanted to come in D.C. and send the federal agents in, they can do that. And the problem that I have with this notion that we're going to just stop cooperation is that what you do then, you just allow the federal agents to just roam wild with no sort of local authority to it. So I think that they got that wrong. Janeese Lewis-George, she definitely wanted to push Trump, 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 Republican, 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 but neither one of them gave a great answer to the question. Let's say you do everything that you want to do, and whether it's Trump or any other mayor says, we're going to take the funding from you. You really didn't hear a good answer. Janeese Lewis-George said she was going to work with Congress. Kenyan McDuffie said it's just not going to happen. They are both peddling this stuff to voters, and it's just not true. That's why they were unable to answer that specific question.
They all did somewhat talk around that specific question. Kevin, what was your take?
Yeah, I agree with Malik in that there wasn't a lot of specifics. It was just, this is the way it's going to be. And we are in a unique position as the District of Columbia, as a federal district. To Malik's point, we have a very powerful mayor, but of course the president has a say with all this, and the federal government and Congress's role in all of this too. So there's a special situation situation here that's unlike any other city in America in terms of jurisdictional issues. Of course, Kenny McDuffie talked about, well, I've got a $21 billion budget. We'll just reapportion funds from that. That is not the solution if we get funds cut off from the federal government. I think you've seen a mayor and Mayor Bowser effectively messaging to this administration, navigating this very delicate path that we're on in terms of her role with the federal government and this city. And I think Kenny McDuffie is likely more in that mold in terms of being more conciliatory and working with federal partners, as opposed to what Malik just said in terms of Janeese Lewis-George, that is much more confrontational to this administration.
And can I jump in on that point? And I want people to understand this. In 2021, so I always say Trump 1.0. Muriel Bowser during 1.0 is what people want her to be now. And when I say that, I mean that she was very antagonistic when it comes to the White House. She said that she was going to create Black Lives Matter Plaza as a message to Donald Trump that Black Lives Matter. But she also said a number of other things that she was going to do that are just not realistic. And I think that Muriel Bowser realized that she really doesn't have a lot of friends in Congress. And so she had to do things differently. We sued Donald Trump over his hotel. That was a very different position that D.C. had. And can we actually realistically say that we're better off for how it was in 1.0 versus 2.0? I am someone who has never voted for Muriel Bowser before. I campaigned against Muriel Bowser, but I cannot think of a better city executive in the entire country that could have done what she did with the restrictions that she had in D.C.
In Trump 2.0.
In Trump 2.0. Yeah, I can't think of a better executive.
Okay, let's hold that thought. We'll
You've
come
got
back.
Bipartisan agreement on that.
You guys are agreeing a lot. Listen, let's talk about child care and education in just a moment. But first, let's toss everything over to Tom Fitzgerald, who's standing by with our debate moderators, our colleague Jim Lokay and Katie Barlow.
Yeah, good evening. Yeah, the spin room is spinning pretty furiously right now. We've got all three, count them, of our moderators for the debate over the past hour. Mo, Jim, and Katie are here right now, so we've got 2 minutes to boil down a 1 hour debate.
Able to turn.
Yeah.
Now the pressure's on.
You will not be getting 60 seconds each. Real quick, what were your takeaways?
I thought for a lot of district voters who haven't been following the in and out of this campaign, it was a pretty good introduction to who the three candidates were, and they took slightly different approaches to how they handled this debate. I thought, some were more aggressive than others, but I think you got a sense of who they were.
Yeah, it was interesting how they interacted with each other and with you. As you sat there, was there something that jumped out at you, Jim, that you said, oh, wait a minute, that's the moment that we all look for when we go into
I don't think you plan for the moment. I think sometimes it just pops up along the way. But I think as far as we were looking at some of the topics coming up tonight, the affordability issue was the big one, and I think you realized they were going in different directions out there. I don't know necessarily if there was an aha moment and all of that, but as we went down the line, we got a sense at least of where they were going. And I think once you realize that's where the debate's going, that makes it a successful exchange.
Well, the noise I heard in the crowd was when Gary started talking about building a nuclear reactor in the room. So that was a moment where I thought the crowd reacted a little bit. For you keyed in on a lot of public safety, crime issues, looking at what they had to say about their own policies and about each other's policies. How much of a difference did you see between all of them?
Well, I think what was important was for the voters to see if there was any daylight between any of them and to really appreciate how little power the mayor has in some instances when it comes to decisions of the U.S. attorney to prosecute certain cases and or whether they're going to direct them to cooperate with MPD. So I think it helped the voters kind of put in the right perspective what the mayor can and can't do when it comes to public safety and where they're going to have to find budget dollars that are already getting cut.
I'm going to have to cut you off because you've all run out of time.
Thank you.
Some of my own medicine.
You fourth.
Some of my own medicine.
All right. Our moderators for our debate this evening here in the Fox 5 Spin Room. We will send it to a break right now. We'll be right back after this. And welcome back in here to the Fox 5 Spin Room after our D.C. Democratic mayoral primary debate this evening. We're joined now by Gary Goodweather. You were up there for an hour. Right out of the gate, you were asked what your priority was. You could have chosen anything. Why did you choose what you chose?
Well, look, the most important thing is affordability in our city. If people can't live here and work here, not much else matters. And I think that I got across that this is the job of the mayor is an executive job. And I was the only one on the stage this evening that has any experience to lead this city. I've been trained as a United States Army officer and run businesses and been trained to lead organizations.
Both of your competitors this evening were known commodities in political circles throughout the D.C. area. You are not. Do you think you punched through in any way tonight as far as people getting to know you, what your policies are, where you stand as mayor?
Yeah, I think that because I try to get across as much detailed as possible, that really is what makes the difference between me and my two, as you said, competitors that are legislators. So in terms of being able to punch through, yeah, this is about solutions, not salvos at each other, and the fact that I do not have any political debts that I am paying off. I am serving D.C. residents, period.
Let me ask you about the way we're voting right now. This ranked choice voting is new in the District of Columbia.
Yes.
We've heard both your other candidates talk about how they would rank or not rank the rest of you. Could this be an advantage to you? Do you see this as a possibility for you if they were to cancel each other out?
Absolutely. I mean, from a pure strategy standpoint, we'll win in part because of ranked choice voting. But I got to tell you, I was mortified by the responses today. I mean, we are Washington, D.C. We need to be the leaders in democracy. The voters overwhelmingly voted for ranked choice voting. And for both of them to just dismiss it is really not what I think Washington, D.C. should be doing. We need to be leading the way for our country.
Gary Goodweather joining us here, coming off the stage here in the D.C. Democratic mayoral debate here at the McCourt School in Georgetown University. We thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you, sir. I appreciate your time.
We're going to continue with you here throughout the night. For now, we'll send it back.
Thanks so much, Vince. The debate is over, but the coverage continues. Final thoughts from both of you, Democratic strategist Kevin Walling and also Republican strategist Malik Abdul. What are your final thoughts?
Yeah, I give the moderators a lot of credit, not just saying that as because we're in the Fox 5 family, but Mo, Katie, and Jim really pressed the candidates to move beyond ambition and actually what are the tangible things that you think you can accomplish. There are many times they interrupted, actually not taking these pie-in-the-sky answers, but actually what will you do on day one? How will you fund it? How will you get your council on board? And I think that's a key takeaway from tonight's debate.
Presidential moderators 2028, we already have them.
There.
We already have
here.
them. I think that both of them did exactly what they needed to do. Some of the things that are still going to be some of the more pressing issues, and for me, it really is Janeese Lewis-George making a lot of promises that I just don't think, and Kenyan McDuffie kind of hit her on it, things that are just simply unrealistic, and she doesn't have a way to pay for these things.
And let me ask you guys really quick, for folks who are on the fence, voters who are undecided, who best won over those undecided voters?
I would say that there was a larger issue with Janeese Lewis-George, just really on the public safety, the kind of democratic socialist thing that kind of made people uneasy. So I think that Kenyan probably did a better job in, especially on the public safety piece. People who are concerned about public safety, which is a big issue, red, white, Democrat or Republican, Kenyan McDuffie actually won that, and I think that gives him the edge in this debate.
Agree completely. If public safety is your number one concern, it was Kenyan McDuffie. Affordability, obviously the councilwoman.
There you go. Thank you both for joining us.
Are you going to have
Thanks
us back?
for having us.
You got to have us back.
Okay. Listen, we'll be back with more of today's headlines. Right now at 8:30, teenagers brawl inside a D.C. Chipotle tonight. Local and federal leaders working to stop the violence. Could parents soon be struck with charges? Multi-billion-dollar utility sale, the merger agreement for Dominion Energy. And White House ballroom setback, the latest funding fight between the White House and lawmakers on Capitol Hill. First, this half hour, another so-called teen takeover in Navy Yard over the weekend, turning into an all-out brawl. Leaders in both D.C. and the feds now trying to figure out how to curb the violence. Fox 5's Homa Bash is downtown with the latest.
When you talk to anybody who has seen these viral videos of chaos and violence, the first question they always ask is, where are the parents? This latest incident happened just one day after D.C. U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro said she was going to be holding parents accountable. And today, she doubled down on that claim.
Is a curfew violator, you're subject to a $500 fine each and every time. And if there are crimes under contributing to the delinquency of a minor, you face up to 6 months in prison. And I am not shy about looking for jail time. The people of the district have had enough, and we do not want this increasing as these teens run wild through our neighborhoods.
Now, the latest chaotic incident happening around 8:40 Saturday night at the Chipotle in Navy Yard. You see about 8 teens throwing punches, even throwing high chairs at each other, and innocent bystanders, including young children, huddled in the corner of the restaurant for safety. All of the juveniles are wearing black, some with hoods up, some with masks on. Pirro today calling on D.C. Council to pass a discretionary curfew law for the summer, which would let D.C. police break up gatherings starting after 8 p.m. in certain zones. Mayor Muriel Bowser also urging council to do the same. We also heard from the FBI on how they are helping.
The FBI is devoting personnel and resources to investigate all possible federal violations during these violent takeovers.
Now, D.C. police say they were already in the area monitoring another large gathering. They got to that Chipotle in less than a minute, and by that time, everyone involved in that teen takeover, that brawl, had already fled. So no arrests have been made at this time, either teens or parents charged with anything. We're told there were no physical injuries. Guys?
Now, a Fox 5 News alert. 5 people are dead after a shooting at a mosque in San Diego. 3 of the dead are victims and 2 are the shooters. The Islamic Center is the largest mosque in San Diego County, and its campus includes a school. Aerials over the scene show children being led out to safety. The 3 victims killed are men. Law enforcement says the 2 shooters were teenagers. None of the victims or suspects have been identified. Right now, investigators are treating the shooting as a hate crime. Fairfax County police say speed is the main factor in a deadly crash yesterday in Oakton. Driver Jamara Herrera and passenger Alejandro Rodriguez Castillo were killed when the car struck a median and then crashed into a concrete wall along I-66 and Route 123. A 2-year-old and an 8-year-old were also seriously injured. Police say car data shows Herrera was traveling 116 miles per hour 5 seconds before the crash. Investigators also say the 8-year-old was the only person properly wearing a seatbelt.
We have now 2 fatalities. We're probably going to have 3. And we are maintaining close contact with the family. So it was a busy weekend in the National Capital area around the Beltway.
Police say other factors may have also contributed to the collision. A man shot dead by police after they say he killed a woman in Alexandria. It happened around 4 this morning in an apartment building along Canterbury Square. Police say they arrived to a barricaded suspect and a woman who had already been shot. After refusing to listen to commands, the suspect reportedly came out the apartment and, we're told, charged at officers. That's when he was shot and killed.
The officers immediately began to give verbal commands to the suspect. The suspect immediately refused to comply. Officers continued to engage him. The suspect then emerged, running full speed at the officers charging at them, and there was 2 service weapons that were fired by our officers.
Police have not yet identified the man or the woman involved in the shooting. The officers involved are currently on administrative leave. The man accused in a shooting spree across Prince George's County will not be released on bail. 68-year-old Larry James Simpson faces 66 charges linked to a string of shootings and carjackings last Friday. Several people were wounded, and at least one person remains in critical condition. Police say Simpson attempted to steal cars and shot randomly at people at several locations. He's due back in court on June 15th. The trial for a Bowie police officer who was indicted in a highway shooting began today. Sergeant Robert Warrington is charged with attempted second-degree murder for firing his gun at a man last September while on duty. The person shot at was not struck. The driver had pulled over to retrieve a hat which had blown away. That is when Warrington reportedly fired at the vehicle. Coming up, the future of Medicare drug prices, the ruling today from the Supreme Court, plus reducing security wait times, the new pilot program being tested by TSA.
Summer.
The Supreme Court is allowing Medicare to keep negotiating lower drug prices after rejecting challenges from major pharmaceutical companies. The program, created under President Biden's Inflation Reduction Act, covers 25 high-cost drugs, including Ozempic and Wegovy. The Trump administration has kept the program in place, with another round of price negotiations expected to expand coverage to 40 drugs. A massive energy merger could reshape the power industry in our region. Dominion Energy says it's being acquired by Florida-based NextEra Energy in a nearly $67 billion all-stock deal. It would create the world's largest regulated electric utility company. The Washington Post reporting that NextEra shareholders would own about 75% of the combined company.
And a big part of this deal is the big data center concentration here in Northern Virginia, sort of the gold rush there is to build these new data centers to power AI technology, and they guzzle so much energy, so much electricity. You want these companies need to be very big to pursue that infrastructure.
The merger is expected to take at least a year to complete. It still needs to be cleared by federal regulators. Off-site TSA screening to help relieve airport congestion is being tested at Boston's Logan International Airport. The Wall Street Journal reports some passengers will go through security at an outpost and then be transported by shuttle bus 25 miles to the airport and dropped off beyond the security checkpoint. The pilot project, which begins next month, is initially available only for Delta Airlines and JetBlue Airways flights. The program will start next month. A brazen act of vandalism in Georgetown. The popular bakery forced to spend time cleaning up and repairing its front window. Plus a huge loss for the defenders, the key player out for the season. But first, here's Caitlin with a check on our weather.
Tisha, our heat wave is well underway as temperatures soared into the 90s today, and we look to be even hotter for your Tuesday. So how long this will go on, and a check of that holiday weekend forecast, all coming up after the break.
A popular D.C. bakery is cleaning up after an act of vandalism in Georgetown. Police say someone threw a beer keg straight through the front window of Georgetown Cupcake while employees were inside. Sharon Rajay joins us with a closer look.
This is crazy, certainly brazen, and the damage is hard to miss. Georgetown Cupcake says a man walked up to the store late Sunday night, picked up a beer keg, hurled it through the glass, and then just walked off. Owners say employees were inside at the time. Thankfully, no one was hurt, but as you can imagine, we're told, still rattled by what happened.
We are so grateful that no one was hurt. That is, as a business owner, that is my main concern. But it is also very disturbing. We've been in business now here in Georgetown for over 18 years, and we have never seen anything like this.
Yeah, so take a look at this video posted by Georgetown Cupcake. It shows the suspect apparently carrying that keg before throwing it through the front window around 11 Sunday night. The impact shattering that glass, sending the keg crashing into the store. Police say an employee inside heard the glass break, ran to the back of the store for safety. Again, no one was hurt, but owners posted on social media that the incident was, quote, reckless, dangerous, completely unacceptable, saying people inside could have been seriously injured.
I think as a business owner, it is violating. And, you work hard every day. Your staff works hard. And this is something that is completely unnecessary. No one needs to our staff instead of our bakers were cardboarding up the window last night. And that's not their job. They shouldn't have to, stop what they're doing.
And owners say the damage is in the thousands, but despite the damage, Georgetown Cupcake reopened today. D.C. police are investigating this case as felony destruction of property and are asking anyone who recognizes the suspect to come forward. Police say there are multiple security cameras in and around the business as investigators work to identify the suspect. The company says that they are grateful for the community support, for neighboring businesses, for also coming together to help.
Sharon, thanks so much. The 20-year-old man who died after being stabbed at a Dumfries Shell gas station has been identified. Police tell Fox 5 David Agapito got into a physical altercation with an employee around midnight Sunday. The employee, identified as Michael Dickey, is accused of stabbing Agapito one time in the upper body. Agapito died on the scene. Dickey is being held without bond. A woman sentenced to a year in prison today for her role in a Clark County, Virginia wine heist. Natalie Ray was arrested for stealing 6 bottles of wine valued at $40,000 from an inn and restaurant last November. Police say she and a man posed as event planners to get close to the rare wines. Her accomplice remains on the loose. D.C. Defenders quarterback Jordan Ta'amu is out for the rest of the season. It comes after he was injured in the first quarter of last week's game against Louisville. No word on who will replace him. Turning to the weather now, here's a live look outside from our Fox 5 sky camera at the Stacks in D.C. Good evening to you, and it is still pretty warm out there after what was day one of a heat wave. The question, though, Caitlin, is did we break a record?
We came just shy of that record, Tisha, but I do think we're going to do it tomorrow. So these temperatures are very hot and coming in very early. So it's mid-May. We still average highs in the mid to upper 70s. But we are well into the 90s today. We will again tomorrow. We expect to break that record of 96. Into Wednesday, it's still very hot, but our cold front approaches, so we'll get some strong storms late in the evening. That will definitely break the heat, and we transition to a wetter and much cooler end of the work week and start to the holiday weekend. So a crazy week, another one featuring big swings. 93 was the high at DCA today. 96 was the record to hit. But there was a record broken at Dulles with that high of 95. Baltimore also hit 95, but no record there. And as we look at current temperatures, we are still very, very warm for this hour. 86 in D.C., 84 in Baltimore, 86 in Gaithersburg, 89 at Dulles, and 85 in Manassas. Some 70s for Winchester and Martinsburg. That's because they got some thunderstorms earlier this evening, and that really cooled them off. Didn't do anything to help with the humidity. Those dew points are all still 60 plus, and it was very humid today. It'll be the same thing tomorrow. Satellite and radar showing those showers that were over the mountains now well off to our north. 2 batches of storms, one non-severe now moving through the Ohio Valley, but still a very active evening for the Great Plains. You see multiple tornado watch boxes in effect. So from Wichita up through Des Moines, that is a nasty looking couple of squall lines. So big severe weather threat with this incoming cold front as it interacts with this very unseasonably hot air mass. 74 degrees overnight tonight. Those passing storms are pretty much done with, and we'll have partly cloudy skies. For tomorrow, your Tuesday, Bermuda high. So we're kind of in the apex of the most amount of sunshine and the biggest push of warmth and humidity combined, so that we think we'll have our highest temperatures of this heat wave. So we hit 93 today, but we are forecasting 97 tomorrow. 98 Manassas and Culpeper, 95 in Martinsburg, and 96 in Frederick. Really, really hot stuff. That's tomorrow. For Wednesday, we start off with sunshine. It's again hot and humid, but by late afternoon, you start to see some storms bubble up to the north and west. They drop into the metro. If they get here a little early, that will certainly cut down on our high temperature potential. That's what's going to limit us a little bit more on Wednesday versus tomorrow. We're not expecting any storms tomorrow. But anyways, as we get into the evening, you see more of a squall line set up. Severe thunderstorms are possible. Eventually, we'll trend away from the severe threat and just to a rainy day as you wake up Thursday. And those showers are still with us even into the mid-afternoon. Here's a look at that severe risk for tomorrow. Marginal level 2 out of 5. But for the whole area, we are likely to have some widespread late-day storms. Damaging winds and hail would be the biggest concerns, but also heavy rain. However, heavy rain is kind of a thing that we need. Big temperature fall off as we head into the second half of the week. That first is going to be because of the wet weather and then just cooler few days. So look at that drop. 95 Wednesday to 70 on Thursday to just 61 on Friday. Holiday weekend looks a little unsettled. Multiple chances for rain showers, but it does warm up a touch as we're back into the 70s by the weekend. Tisha, back over to you.
Thanks so much, Caitlin. Good to know. Meanwhile, the hantavirus-stricken cruise ship is now in the Netherlands. The MV Hondius is docked at Rotterdam and will undergo disinfection. Crew members will also be quarantined. Around 150 passengers and crew members from 23 countries were originally on board. 3 people, a Dutch couple and a German national, died from the illness. The U.S. is working to relocate Americans affected by the spread of a new Ebola strain in Central Africa. An American doctor in Congo tested positive for the strain. Deaths have already surpassed 100 in 2 provinces. There are also more than 300 suspected cases. There is no approved vaccine for the rare strain.
The region where it is happening is highly volatile, with the humanitarian situation going on and the population moving around from South Sudan to Uganda and other parts.
Yesterday, the World Health Organization declared the outbreak a global health emergency. The agency says it typically spreads through bodily fluids. A hefty payout for Mr. Trump's allies who allege they were wronged by the Biden administration. Today, the Justice Department announced a $1.7 billion fund. It comes as President Trump moves to drop his $10 billion lawsuit against the IRS over the leak of his tax returns. Many Democrats are blasting the deal as corrupt and unprecedented. Education Secretary Linda McMahon launched a workforce Pell Grant program today. It allows students to use Pell Grants to pay for credential and certification programs, not just college degrees. The goal is to get more students into short-term job training programs. Critics argue this will divert funding from other programs and reduce access to higher education for low-income students.
As we are, reshoring manufacturing, we will have the workforce that we need.
Pell Grants, take it away to block every pathway to the middle class.
Last week, the Trump administration announced a new cap on loans for graduate degrees. It caps borrowing at slightly more than $20,000 a year. Loans for medical and law degrees will be higher at $50,000 per year and $200,000 total. Senate Republicans are reworking part of their Homeland Security funding plan. This comes after the Senate parliamentarian blocked a $1 billion proposal tied to President Trump's White House ballroom project. Democrats argue the provision does not qualify for the fast-track budget process. Republicans and the White House insist the money is about security.
At the very moment Americans are pleading for relief, Republicans are telling them, pay for Trump's palace first.
One of the biggest threats we have is from a drone defense. That is not a cheap approach to have actual drone defense for the entire complex from the White House, not just the ballroom.
The ballroom is set to be completed by 2008. Coming up, when should you eat dinner? What time researchers say is the best time to improve your health? That's next.
I don't care if I saw you in a magazine or if you're on TV. That one don't mean nothing.
A federal court has dismissed claims against OpenAI brought by Elon Musk. He accused them of betraying a shared vision for it to guide artificial intelligence development as a nonprofit dedicated to humanity's benefit. The 9-person jury found Musk waited too long to file his lawsuit and missed the deadline for the statute of limitations. An ice cream recall tonight due to the possible presence of metal fragments. It impacts certain pint and quarter-size containers of Strauss Family Creamery organic super premium ice cream in multiple flavors. The company is offering a voucher for customers who fill out a form online. And did you eat dinner yet? New research suggests eating dinner around 6 p.m. could improve your health. Eating later increases blood sugar spikes and fat storage. Eating earlier, that is, gives your body more time to burn energy before